schools. So, so Mr. Wasch, we are very grateful for you taking your time to be with us. And we're eager to have this conversation, particularly from St. Mary's University here in Calgary, who has a dedicated education pre-service program. And we're very, very proud of the number of graduates who move on to do some really exceptional work in districts in around our province and different parts of our country. But we know that's possible because of the strong partnership we have with school districts here in our region, particularly with Calgary Catholic School District. And I knew you from my previous time there, and so this is just a great opportunity to reconnect, because I know you bring such enthusiasm to this topic, and you recently moved into the role that you are now occupying. So I'm going to let you talk about your role for a little bit, and just share with us why this role was created and what you see coming out of this role, the work that you're doing. I know you want this to be a conversation, so we're grateful for Natalie and Emily to be our partners in this, and so I hope both of you have brought some questions. And for those of you listening in our sort of post-recording, know that you will have opportunities to contact Mr. Wasch for further conversation. I know he's very open to that. And of course, to our own education department, because we want to be here as a resource for people who are thinking about Catholic education as well. So without any further ado, we welcome Mr. Wasch, and please tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and why Catholicity shapes education in a very unique way. So
fantastic. That's not a you know a lightweight question at all, right? You know, how does Catholicity shape education, or how should it shape education and what we do? But so let me start by saying, first of all, I am absolutely humbled and grateful for the opportunity to be able to be here and to speak with you. What a gift it is to us in the province of Alberta that we have St. Mary's University, with its focus on turning out educators who are already imbued with a spirit of Catholic education when they come into our schools. I'll give you a little background on myself that maybe give a little bit of context. By the way, I am myself a St. Mary's University alumni. My student number has 2 digits. So I was a St. Mary's University student back in the day when it was St. Mary's University College, and rented space on campus at the U of C. And I am grateful and always for the experience that I had there. So about myself, so I have been teaching with the Calgary Catholic School District for 25 years. I am not originally from the city of Calgary. I grew up in rural Alberta, the town of Carstairs. I attended Hugh Sutherland High School, and did most of my teacher training at the University of Calgary. I was incredibly fortunate to be picked up as a young graduate from the education faculty there to teach in Calgary Catholic. In my teaching experience now, I've taught everything from kindergarten right up to grade 12. I've been a school administrator. I've been a vice principal. I've been a principal of a school. I've worked in French immersion. I've done kindergarten phys ed. My heart really lay with junior high social studies and junior high religious studies, and those were my favorite subjects to teach. I've been so blessed in my career to be able to work with exceptional people. And Dr. Dixon, you're one of them. We have incredible people working in the field of Catholic education. And this is not at all to disparage my colleagues across the street who work in other publicly funded jurisdictions. But I would say that kind of the biggest difference that I note is the sense of visceral vocation that people talk about when they talk about Catholic education. You don't have to work in publicly funded Catholic education in the province of Alberta to get a good job, to have a stable pension, to have good benefits. So the attraction to it really is about that degree that you feel you're making an impact with your students. And granted, education's a wonderful field because you work with young people. And if you want to feel hopeful about the future, work with young people. You know, it fills you with just such a view of all the things that are good, true, and beautiful in the world. And I use the phrasing of the transcendentals on purpose here, because in Catholic education, I think one of our greatest gifts is we have a vocabulary to talk about that. I think that anybody that works with young people gets a hint of potential. They get a hint of hope. They get a hint of the interior dimension that builds in young people, and what fantastic human beings they're going to turn out to be. I think in Catholic education, we have a vocabulary to talk about that. And so we can talk about spiritual wellness, and we can talk about spiritual growth, because I think that the importance of Catholic education is we're not just preparing people for post-secondary or for jobs or even for success in life, however you want to determine that. I think we have a view on the eternal. I think we can talk about really our vocation as Catholic educators as being partners in the salvific work of evangelizing people and bringing them closer to their true nature, which is sons and daughters of God. And yeah, that sounds a little preachy and a little soapboxy. I'm not that complicated a guy, and I got to tell you, I've just been so being able to go into a classroom, being able to go into meetings, even with other administrators, and be able to talk about the role of God, the role of Spirit, the role of how we feel that the Church and its teaching should inform our understanding of what we should do with students, is just so powerful. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I pause here. I've talked for a bit, but let's use that as a springboard to discuss some more.
Well,
I think, yeah, go ahead, Lance.
I was just going to say, no, keep going. I'm sold. What more do we have to say? But Emily, you go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how was your transition from St. Mary's University into all those years of teaching to the role you're in now? Kind of what was your vocational journey?
Oh, Emily, it's a long, twisting journey. I got to say this. I really actually never thought that I would be 25 years teaching in one jurisdiction, and I honestly never thought I'd be 25 years in the city of Calgary. I really thought when I got my first teaching job, I was kind of like, oh yeah, this gig will be good for a couple of years. I'll pay off my student loans, maybe buy a new TV, and then I'm gone, kind of thing. And it's stuck. I'm here, and I think part of the reason why I'm here is because I get such meaning from the work that I do. And when you talk kind of about my vocational journey, I would say that every step along my vocational journey, from starting out as a classroom junior high teacher to sort of exploring administration, and I worked in educational technology for a number of years too, has sort of been an openness to potential and a willingness to be surprised. And I have to tell you that the last 3 jobs that I've had in this school jurisdiction have been things that I didn't even know were jobs when I entered the teaching profession. So when I transitioned out of St. Mary's University College and the University of Calgary, and I got my first teaching degree, I didn't know that there was so much potential within the career that really I've been delighted to be able to kind of recreate myself every 6 to 7 years and do something entirely different, kind of. So yes, I taught junior high for a number of years. I got seconded to a special project to help teachers with teaching with technology. This was a long time ago. Windows 95 was like kind of brand new, and it was kind of blowing there was this new thing out there, maybe you've heard of it. It was called the internet. Anyways, we thought it was pretty cool. Seems to be taking, I don't know. So from there, I moved into school-based administration. I spent some very, very good and formative years there. And I think my time in school-based administration was also coupled with the time where my own children were born. And I would say that that experience really helped form some of my philosophy of leadership and some of the responsibility that, the awesome responsibility that we hold as educators when we're working with other people's children, with the most blessed and sacred thing they could bring to the table. And it's entrusted to us in our care. And that is just, when you contemplate that, that is so powerful. And it really is. It's a humbling experience. From there, I moved into our central office administration. I supervised our information technology department for a number of years. And then I started working on the chief superintendent staff. And as a liaison, I did a lot of work with our elected board of trustees. I did a lot of policy and governance work, which, yay, sounds thrilling and exciting. But it's one of those necessary things, and I learned very much. And now I am newly minted as the director of Catholicity, and it's sort of I've barely finished unpacking the boxes, and we are deep into the work here that involves actually a number of initiatives and a number of projects based on our 3-year plan. Here's another difference in Catholic education. Every school jurisdiction in the province of Alberta is required to submit a 3-year plan. 3-year plans have to contain measurable goals. They have accountability measures built into them. They're publicly reported on through your board of trustees to your publics. In Calgary Catholic, we get to work on a goal of staff and student faith formation. And we get to articulate that in our planning documents and communicate it out to our publics. And I'm so excited to be working on that. Did I answer your question in a very, very long-winded fashion, Emily? I'm sorry.
No, I think that's good. I mean, yeah, I think you've raised other questions as well that I'd love for you to unpack. But just before I go to my questions, Emily, did you have another question for Mr. Wasch, or Natalie? Please jump in as well.
Thank you for your answer. That was really cool to see your journey and also what's out there in the world of teaching and administration. So it's cool to hear all about what you've done in your time and in your career and family. So.
Thank you, Emily.
I guess I'm wondering, besides from the teacher standpoint or admin standpoint, besides within Calgary Catholic attending Mass and stuff, what other outlets do you have to explore your faith and strengthen it?
Great question, Natalie. And I'll answer that from a couple of different perspectives. I'll answer that both kind of as an employee perspective, and then kind of from my position now, kind of what we're doing. And I will say that, other outlets that exist to kind of express and celebrate your faith. Okay, so you have your masses, you have liturgies in your school. In my time, I have been part of book studies, Bible studies, prayer studies. What I think we do really, really well in Calgary Catholic is we also do a number of social justice initiatives. And, every year I have a report that we submit, and it talks about the ways that schools and students have worked to support charitable organizations or social justice initiatives within the city of Calgary and around the globe. And I have to tell you, last year's report, 117 schools, 752 social justice projects. So there is tremendous opportunity in every school, multiple opportunities for people to kind of demonstrate this care and concern for others around them in conjunction with Catholic social teachings, and to say, this is work that we do to give visible expression of our faith and our life of faith to the community. I'll be totally honest with you. I mean, our colleagues across the street, they do the same things. They'll tell you, yeah, we do things for the food bank or for the clean water initiative and those things too. What we are able to do once again in Catholic education is we have a vocabulary to say the reason why we do those things is based on our understanding of Catholic social teaching. So it's not just important that we do them, but it's important that we understand why we do them. And maybe we haven't always been great at articulating that, you know, actually being able to say that to our students and explain it to our students that way. But I think that's a huge important thing about the formation we do. And Natalie, not to put too fine a point on it, but I start every meeting with a prayer. So does my chief superintendent. So does our superintendent of support services, who takes care of our buildings. So does the lady that manages all the bus routes, our transportation coordinator. There's an expectation here that your life of prayer, or the invocation on God to help guide our work, is part of what we do. It's part of our culture. I said I'd answer that from the other perspective now, so switch hats, step over here. Okay, Director of Catholicity. So what do we do? Well, in order to work on this idea of student and staff faith formation, there's a multifaceted approach here that has to do with providing formal in-servicing and training. So there's training for teachers on, you know, you're new to teaching religion. Here are the resources. Here's mentorship that's available to you. Here's lesson ideas and even community ideas, so you can collaborate with other teachers teaching a similar kind of thing. There are large-scale events that we do. We have faith days. They're faith formation days for all staff. They involve a liturgy presided by our bishop, but they also involve guest speakers. This year, we have Steve Angrisano, Catholic songwriter and speaker, who's going to be addressing all of our staff. COVID restrictions, we can't all gather together, but we've got plans developed for every one of our 121 school and work sites for them to gather as micro communities and have this collective faith experience together. My team offers retreat opportunities for staff, for administrators. So we do retreats out at Mount St. Francis. We do retreats at the FCJ Center to kind of get this idea that building individual interior spirituality is a first step in making you more effective at expressing your spirituality, expressing the richness of the Catholic faith when you're in front of a class of teachers. Those are just a couple of the things. But Natalie, you ask a great question, and like, can we do more? Yeah, we can, and we want to.
So really cool side note is, I'm aging myself. In 2011, I got the opportunity to meet Steve, and it was at a Catholic youth rally, but he's amazing. And he had his guitar up there, and it was really cool. So I was like, oh, Steve, like, I've heard of him. So
Emily, I'm going to age myself even more here. I played guitar with Steve Angrisano in 1988.
Oh, wow.
Wow, you started guitar really young,
on stage
Mr. Wasch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 4 years old, and no.
That's a great question from Natalie. I think it really sort of pushes us to look under the surface a little bit and to ask how deeply rooted is our Catholicity in the work and life of any system, any education system. And I actually want to push that a little bit further, just kind of, you know, because we're thinking about our listeners predominantly being people who are wondering, is this the kind of environment that I want to dedicate my career life for, kind of investing in, and do I see the value there? Does it resonate with me? So a couple of questions I have. One of them, just to kind of segue from what we were talking about, you mentioned at the beginning about so much of the mission and the opportunity given to Catholic educators is participating in the work of evangelization. What does that look like in a classroom? Because that word, evangelization, conjures up different things for people. And so when they start hearing, oh, we're supposed to be evangelizing, hold on here. So tell us what that looks like, because I think this goes, I think, to the bigger picture of how we see the church fitting in society in and through our education system. So yeah. Could you maybe help clarify for people what exactly you're talking about?
Yeah, thanks. And Lance, that's a great question, because you're right. Like, evangelization is a little bit of a term that can conjure up a whole range of different kind of activities. Um, I would say that, predominantly when I'm thinking about evangelization and effective evangelization in a classroom, is that evangelization always starts with relationship. And that really, when we talk about participating in that salvific work with students, is that it's based on the idea of establishing a relationship of caring, first and foremost. uh, a kind of a preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. Very much the actions and the attitude and those day-to-day interactions we have with our students are the most effective tools that we have of I would guess, pointing the way to a life well lived. And before I brought up the idea of the transcendentals. And if you think of kind of the role of a teacher as being pointing the way to goodness, truth, and beauty, it's not trying to hammer or squeeze goodness, truth, or beauty into a container by brute force. It's not trying to academically speak about goodness, truth, and beauty with no lived experience of it. The good, the true, and the beautiful are attractive because they are good, true, and beautiful. Because there's the divine in them. God exists in them. And we make them attractive to others by living that out in our lives as well. So Lance, I'm not sure if that entirely answered your question there, but like when we talk about evangelization, I think evangelization is the responsibility of every Catholic out there. And the effective tools of evangelization that we have are living lives of caring, of respect, of honor, of trust, and of genuine concern for one another.
Thank you. I'm interested in hearing Emily and Natalie's comments to what you just shared with regards to evangelization. Does that resonate with you, or does it raise more questions or thoughts?
I think it goes hand in hand with what we're learning in our religious education classes, because we're learning about evangelization and the catechesis and catechism and just kind of the role that we have as educators. So when you were speaking of that, it really hit home, which was really exciting and kind of on the cusp too. Even if you're not super far along in the faith, is there room for you to be mentored within the Calgary Catholic School District, or is that a requirement going in for religious education, I guess?
Yeah, great question. And so, our human resources department would be more qualified than me to talk about sort of the technical aspects of, yes, we require a reference letter. It needs to look like this, and you need to have a parish priest sign off on your reference letter. And there's some mechanics that are involved here, sort of, and I'm not necessarily the person to comment on those. What I will comment on is I think that as a jurisdiction, if we say that staff faith formation is an important element of our planning, we have to provide the resources behind that to make that actually approachable and doable. And we know that people's personal faith formation takes a variety of things. There's a variety of paths there. And so your faith formation is not simply saying, here's a list of thou shalt activities. There has to be an invitational element to it as well, and a celebratory element to it as well. They're your own faith journey, no matter where you are. We are all on a faith journey. It continues throughout our lives. So we never get there to the destination, not in this life, right? And that's the beauty of it, but that's also the challenge of it. So there has to be this invitational thing. Are there opportunities for mentorship? Yes, there are. Is it a formal mentorship opportunity where you say, here, I'm at this stage right here, now match me up with this thing? We're not as precise about that, but certainly that is an area of growth for us, is being able to sort of, once again, make that more clear. If you're interested in mentorship, how can we provide that? And we're in partnership with our diocese as well, with our parishes as well. We all have a keen interest in saying that, you know, the strength of our Catholic schools lays with the strength of the teachers that are having that immediate interaction with students and with families.
That leads me to two questions. And I don't want to preclude any that Emily and Natalie also want to share. But I'm conscious, we often complain of politicians getting softball questions. So I want to assure our listeners that we're really, we're putting you through the grind here and giving you some tough questions. So I have two tough questions for you. And not so difficult, I think, that you can't answer, but I think they are real questions in the sense that what you talked about, Emily asked, you know, okay, so mentoring and formation, I think that's a real concern for teachers coming in, you know, kind of brand new to the system. There's not only the issues of competency, it's like, oh my goodness, I like my lesson plan, I'm on probation, my evaluation, but there's also the question of character, like, oh, you know, am I going to be seen as the right fit? So in my role when I was with Calgary Catholic, I served as in instructional and learning services, and part of my role as consultant was to come alongside teachers and to support them in best practices and to see how we could, you know, do that kind of mentoring that you were talking about. But I'll be honest with you, there were some teachers who were really struggling. And I want to hear from you, and I think people may be interested to know in those moments, how do you see a Catholic learning community approaching those issues of discernment and fit and, you know, the moments where we're struggling professionally? How can they expect to experience that process, perhaps maybe uniquely than other institutions?
Excellent question. And yeah, I think that, I'm trying to find the best approach to start answering this one, because I want to be encouraging, but I also want to make it clear that, you know, there is, unlike a lot of other professions that you can do, when you are in front of students, there is the potential for great advances to be made with them, but there's also a great responsibility that you carry to the table to be fit and prepared to deliver that service to students. And there's no question that, you know, we're an organization with 5,000 employees. Is every one of 5,000 employees having the best day that they're ever going to have when they're in front of their students today, or when they're performing their duties today? And I would say, no, that's not a realistic thing, and we understand that. As an employer, we have still a public responsibility to say, though, the service we're providing with publicly funded dollars is a service that is of a quality that people can expect. Now, how do we deal then with people that are maybe struggling? And don't get me wrong, struggle is real, and it's going to happen to every one of us. We're going to struggle in ways that we don't even anticipate are coming. And especially when we feel that burden and that responsibility to be our spiritual best and to model that, there's going to be times when we struggle. How do we deal with that? Mother Teresa struggled. Read her book about her incredible period of dryness. I would say spiritual dryness. I'd say that book was so comforting for me to read, because I was like, oh, excellent. This struggle is real. Mother Teresa's felt it. I feel it myself. But I think the key thing for Mother Teresa, and probably why she is a saint and I am not, is that struggle didn't prevent Mother Teresa from doing what she knew was right and pleasing in the eyes of God. Okay? For the rest of us, we sometimes need help. And so Lance talks about that journey of people coming alongside. And Lance, I would say that is not only the responsibility of consultants in learning services or people who bear the thing of religious education in their title. This is the responsibility of the entire community. When I was a school principal, I took it very, very seriously that the health, the emotional, spiritual, physical health of my staff was one of my top considerations. That was how I made the greatest impact on students at my school, was I ensured that those people standing up in front of them felt supported and felt surrounded by love and support to do the best that they could do. And did some of them struggle? Absolutely. So what do we do when you're struggling? I've noticed you're struggling. How can I help? Right? We have a number of formal processes that are designed around the idea of, evaluation, particularly when you're a new teacher. But they're designed with the idea that the satisfactory outcome, the preferred outcome at the end of all of these, is that we're returning people to work with students who are fit, healthy, happy, and fulfilled in what they're doing. That's the goal of these processes, not the punitive, we're looking for ways to get rid of people. I'll give you an answer that I thought was really telling. This is one of our human resource specialists who kind of said to me, when we make a commitment to a teacher in the form of a permanent contract, we're expecting that employee to be with us for 30 years or more. We're expecting to pay their salary and their benefits for that number of years. It's a $500,000 decision. So every person in front of us, our staff, they are our greatest resource. Not only, you could be crass and say there's a real financial benefit to us to say people have got to be supported and they got to be performing well, and everything we can do to make that happen happens. But there's a responsibility we have as the body of Christ as well to care for each other.
Think of that in the spirit of what you just said. When that teacher sits down at that table and puts her name on that contract, what essentially, we talk about, ATA standards and Calgary Catholic may have like a code of conduct that, they sort of walk you through, but essentially, what is the expectation that you have for every teacher who signs that permanent contract that you just spoke about?
The expectation I would have, I think, of every teacher who I've ever said, I'm recommending you for a permanent contract. The expectation I've had for any one of them is I've said, I would be happy to have my child in your class. I would entrust to your care the most valuable and precious thing in my life. Now, I'm doing that not necessarily with the expectation that you're going to be perfect. Okay? Perfect is the enemy of good, right? But I am doing that with the expectation that you are going to care and that you're going to care enough to put your best effort in.
Emily, Natalie, do you have any final questions, comments that we want to throw at? By the way, you did very well swinging at those balls there I threw at you. So
keep them coming. This is good for me. I love this.
So, but just conscious of time, and I want to make sure that again, Emily and Natalie, any final thoughts and questions that you want to share with Mr. Wasch?
No, I think that's all very insightful, and to be completely honest, my journey in the faith has been quite new. I'm recently baptized, so
congratulations.
Thank you. It's been really exciting, and like Emily said, we're in a religion course right now, so a lot of that has you've kind of spoken to, and it's really comforting to know that I'm going to be able to keep moving forward with it, hopefully within the district, and be supported, because yeah, there's a lot I still need to learn, but it's good. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Natalie, and congratulations. The life of faith is supposed to be a journey of learning and loving and experiencing new things. And I will say, don't be scared of when you say there's so much I have left to learn. The bookshelf behind me is not just for show. I also have so much to learn, and I rely so much on the wisdom of the people that I work with. Great people, and people with really specialized knowledge like Lance. They inform us in our practice so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Emily, or Natalie, for sharing a little bit of your story. I think that's so important that we were able to acknowledge where we're at on the journey and to hear the assurance that there are learning communities such as Calgary Catholic, led by people such as yourself, who recognize the inherent gifts and value of every person on that journey. And I think it's really about a commitment to grow together. And that's probably much of what you look for in people, is that just that desire, that hunger, that openness, I think, that you talked about earlier. Openness to willingness to be surprised. I love that. And openness to potential. Those are two things I wrote down from this that I think are really important for us to communicate with aspiring teachers, people who are discerning, and saying, hey, if this resonates with you, this might be a profession that you will really feel fulfilled in. Just as we close, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us. I'll give you the final word. Is there anything that you would just like to underline, emphasize, or maybe something that you realize you didn't say that you want to leave us with?
I'm sure when I watch this recording again, I'll have so many different things where I'm like, oh, should have said that. Ooh, shouldn't have said that way. And if I've spoken prematurely on anything or out of hand, I apologize ahead of time. I think that education, honestly, has been one of the most rewarding things I could have ever hoped to do with my career and with my life. And I wish all of you St. Mary's University students so much joy and know that you're going with our prayers and you're going with our best wishes for your future, because it is an exciting place to be, and we need you. We need people that are enthusiastic. We need people that are willing to be surprised, who are open to joy. Working with our young people. Now more than ever, I'd say, in Catholic education, the strength of where we're going to be rests with you. Not with old guys like me. We're done.
Where do I fit in on that? I guess I'm more on the other side of the hill.
There's always a home for you, Lance.
That's
always a home.
All right. I don't mind. I'm excited about the students that I encounter on campus, and I'm grateful for Natalie and Emily, who have taken their time to really represent that student body and to bring their questions. It's been great to hear you. And Emily, just before we sign off, what can people look forward to at our next webinar?
So we have a guest speaker from Christ the Redeemer, so going a little bit down the road, but just really, we have a lot of great people that are working in education and a lot of great more questions that we might have. So we just would like to thank St. Mary's Campus Ministries for helping put this all together, and to stay tuned for more episodes or rewatching. But thank you so much again, John, for taking your time today. We really, as students, appreciate it.
Very much my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, that concludes our time together, but certainly, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you have any other questions that you would like to ask Mr. Wasch, I'm sure he would be more than open to hearing from you. In fact, I think that's part of his job, as I'm hearing. So please do take advantage of people such as him within the system that want to encourage you on this journey. And just again, to reiterate what he said, blessings to you on your journey, and know that we are doing this in community. So stay connected. Don't be strangers out there. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Until then, God bless.